Pasties are very common to see on pop stars these days, which are nipple covers for those who don't know, because the nipples are evil and illegal. You'll go blind.
Train by day, Kyle Wigginton podcast by night, all day.
When the snow hit this year, how was that for you?
Well, the thing is, I never want to look another snowflake in the eye.
Yeah.
And the fact that I had to did not please me.
Yeah.
But I was recovering from a shoulder surgery. So I had been in the house for many, many days.
What did you do to your shoulder?
Well, it was a training related incident a couple of years ago. But yeah, it's all better now. She can reach, she can bend, she can flex. But yeah, so I was just in the bed for a few weeks and then the snow hit and it was magical and beautiful. I couldn't enjoy the magic. I just experienced the cold and I was hoping to never do that again. So
what training related incident? Can you talk about it?
So I'm an entertainer and so I was working on my back bends and I tore my labrum in my shoulder.
Golly.
Yeah, not my favorite. But we're on the mend, doing well. And yeah, so a lot of my entertainment is relatively athletic. I'm a burlesque entertainer. I do variety. I'm a professional hula hoop dancer. And so there's a lot of razzle dazzle and kind of circus related dance activities in my life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've seen some of the stuff you guys put on. You put on some really cool shows.
Oh, thank you.
Because you're one of the organizers too, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'm a producer. This is actually my 20th burlesque anniversary.
Oh, duh.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I want to do a retrospective, so that would be kind of fun.
Yeah, how are you going to do that?
Well, I think I want to do like an art book.
Okay.
So I definitely have a lot of material for a memoir. I've been thinking long and hard about it, but I have lots and lots of memorabilia. And I think that kind of the best way to, honor the 20 years and refer back to it is also including visual media, and flyers, posters. I keep set lists, all kinds of zany things. And so I think that, and of course, lots and lots of photos. I was pretty lucky that early on with my touring and performing, it was really well documented. And so we'd have photographers travel with us. So I have a lot of cool stuff from the early years all the way up through today. And so, yeah, I really, and we were chatting about Michigan.
Yeah.
So I'm originally from Michigan and I have a lot of stuff stored up there. I want to keep it away from the hurricanes.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that I have a lot of scanning in my future to go into my storage, into my memorabilia and kind of start going through everything and thinking about just how I want to do it.
Well, burlesque is such a cool art form. How did you get involved in this?
People get involved in burlesque in a wide range of ways. I think mine was a little unique in that I connected to it through slam poetry.
Okay.
So in Michigan, when I was young, maybe about 18, there was every Monday, there was this open mic and it was poetry heavy, but you could kind of do a little bit of anything. You'd have, sometimes people playing music, doing some sort of avant-garde type stuff. And, it was sort of this group of people who tended to get together every Monday.
What location was this again?
Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Now, what it's like a coffee shop?
Oh, a coffee shop. Yes.
So you started slam poetry there, and how did burlesque get tied in this?
Well, so we started doing like kind of wild performance art, and and then as like a little bit of a tangent, one thing that's always a fun memory is that because we all knew each other so well, like once I had this award-winning poem about Elvis. And someone was mad about it. And so then their band did a song that was like against my Elvis poem. So people would like have fights on stage, But anyway, so yeah, sometimes we'd get up and do kind of like weird improvisational sort of, I don't like mixed media, but for dance, it'd be like music and all kinds of things. So we started to collaborate in a variety of ways. And a couple people put together an old timey snake oil show.
Okay.
So if you think do you know about snake oil shows?
It's like medicine that people
like a traveling medicine show. And so anyway, so it was very vaudevillian, a little bit of burlesque. This was in 2005. And, social media didn't really exist. YouTube didn't exist yet, which is wild to think about.
It's crazy.
Super wild. So anyway, so we just started, they put that on and burlesque was a part of that. And it kind of evolved from there.
And then you came down here because
Showbiz.
Showbiz?
Yes. Yeah. So I started touring really early on. And then as time went on, I started to come to New Orleans, and every year I'd come a few more times. And I just really loved it here. And there was that kind of part of me that had that pull, that draw. And then one year, like it happens to so many, I was here on a trip working, and I was like, we have to live here. This is what I have to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, and like 9 months later, here we are. I mean, that was about 6 years ago.
Thanks. You've been married for 6 years?
Yeah. Right before 6 months before the pandemic hit.
Yeah. You're fresh here then.
Yeah. Yeah. In the grand scheme of things.
Yeah. I think I've been here for like 12 years now.
Okay.
I like it down here. I was first introduced to burlesque when I got down here as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I started bartending at a bar on Bourbon Street, and we were right across the street from a club which isn't there anymore, but Bella Blue.
Yeah, absolutely.
She was performing across the street, and I was like, "What is going on over there?"
Was it the Blue Book Cabaret?
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah, I performed there.
Well, I
That's
probably
awesome.
seen you then too.
Yeah, that's so cool. Wow, I love that. So, what was your first impression?
That's hot.
Yeah, hell yeah,
Yeah, like,
that's correct.
Yeah. And then I saw the other acts that they have in the show too, because it's more of a variety show too.
Yeah.
And it was just cool stuff. I get introduced to a lot of things that I never even knew existed.
I love that. Yeah, I think that what's fascinating is, especially 20 years on, burlesque is more widespread, and the kind of revival is all over the world, but it's still very much an underground niche thing, and so even today people are like, what's burlesque? So I think that's really cool that you found it that way. And honestly, New Orleans, in North American burlesque, New Orleans has a great history. So it started in New York City in the mid 1800s, but then sort of came to be, there's a lot of history in New Orleans, and then you have a little bit in California as well.
So, I mean, how did it go from New York to down here? Do you know this?
I mean, I'm trying to think of the exact, because there's this woman, her name is Lydia Thompson. She came here from Europe with her British blondes. It was very scandalous because they were blonde. And at the time, only sex workers had blonde hair because you just didn't, bleach your hair blonde. And
is that a real thing?
No, truly.
Why?
Yeah. I mean, you think of it was also the time where, makeup was considered also like, oh, you must be a hussy. You must be selling your body because you have rouge on, but striptease wasn't connected to burlesque yet. That didn't happen until about the 20s. But what they would do is the burlesque would be more of like a farce. So they would do these plays and do kind of setups, send-ups of the bourgeoisie, and sort of these interesting takes on plays. And and women in tights was not a thing you saw. So there was a lot of scandal. They were great hustlers. They would spread these little like playing cards of themselves, like marketing wonderkins, if you will. And so yeah, I think just the nature of it being a port city, and being older than America,
right?
I think that's just how it kind of came to be, as being just like a hub. But yeah, honestly, you're identifying a gap in my knowledge. I need to find out exactly when.
It's okay. This gives us reason to have another podcast.
Absolutely. I can find out and I'll report my findings.
There you go. So are there any misconceptions that people have with burlesque that you know about?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think, gosh, there's so many layers to it. I mean, I think what's really fascinating is today you really see burlesque in the mainstream. Pop stars really borrow from burlesque. Drag really borrows from burlesque. And there's lots of overlap, but especially if you see Drag Race and things like that with these sort of transitions and with garments, certain types of, pasties are very common to see on pop stars these days, which are nipple covers for those who don't know, because the nipples are evil and illegal. You'll go blind. So, and you see strip club culture very much also, and you see that a lot reflected in music, and that kind of visual media. And so on one hand, it's very saturated, but on the other hand, there's still so much stigma about the art of the striptease, the art of women having and all people having their own agency over their bodies, what they choose to do with their bodies, making money with their bodies, whether it's through dance, or other things like sex work. And so you do find there are people out there who poo-poo it. I mean, honestly, it's so funny. Granted, it's my world. I find it very pure and wholesome. We all have bodies, and most people have sex. We all are here because of sex, you know, and I think it's a really fun way to celebrate sexuality and the art of the human figure through all kinds of ways. So yeah, I think that what you have is, you know, people will have issues, you know, kind of related to that, you know. Just the other day, you know, I produce a lot of shows and there were 3 people who thought it was theater, even though it says burlesque at every step of the way. They're like, we need a refund. We had no idea.
Get the fuck out of here.
We didn't know what it was. And I just, you know.
In New Orleans?
Yeah.
Like, come on.
I mean, it says burlesque in the title.
Well, I feel like this is a city where you have to be ready for anything.
Yes. Okay. So that's fascinating. I love a tangent. As a producer, I've produced all over the world. I've produced all over the country. And it's really fun producing in a tourist town, but it's fun producing in New Orleans because you have tourists here. They want a cultural experience. They want a wild experience. And they want to experience something they've never experienced before.
Yeah.
That's a lot of experiences. And we can offer that here in New Orleans.
Absolutely.
You know? And I do a show called Psychedelic Speakeasy. And all the different shows kind of have a different flavor of audience. And that one changes. My one show, Kapow, the audience is always kind of the same. They're like, woo, they're in it. They're hype. And Psychedelic is a very like far out, trippy. We have this like giant mushroom, 3-dimensional mushroom set and lots of black light and things. And so sometimes you either get people who are like balls to the walls bonkers, like they're having fun. And then you have people who are like, we're at a work conference and we brought our 20 coworkers to see something new. And they look terrified. They're having fun, but they don't know what to do. You know, so it is really interesting. But I do find that, you know, I perform burlesque for people who have never seen it, you know, just about every week. And it's really fun to open people's eyes to like the wild, wonderful world of striptease and performance art.
Yeah, I think the psychedelic one was the first one I reached out to you about.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, and I was like, what do you actually do here? Do you hand out psychedelics to people?
I know, right?
And you're like, no, you can do them if you want to, but
right. I'm like, just don't tell me about it, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like the old acid test days, you know, in the 60s. Well, it's funny, the very first iteration of Psychedelic is at the now former Hi-Ho Lounge in January of 2020. We had 3 shows there and then everything shut down. But we started out that show, those 3 shows where I got sugar cubes and we had a platter and we would kind of start out the show with a ritual and we would pass out the sugar cubes and place it on people's tongues, kind of like communion, you know?
Yeah.
But it's funny. It was just like a fun theatrical thing to do. But the amount of people who really thought we were giving them acid was hilarious.
Right.
And I'm like, y'all would have to pay extra for that. It's not free.
And did people actually start acting like they're on acid too?
You know, that's a really good question. It's possible. I feel like maybe not, but but you know, I will say the power of, what do you call it?
Yeah. What is that called? I was thinking of the word too.
Yeah. The power of suggestion.
Okay.
Yeah. That's powerful. So yeah, sometimes just thinking, oh, hey, you're going to have a wild time. They're like, I'm in it.
Yeah.
But you will get people one time because we'll do, you could like Venmo us I call it the Showgirl ATM. If you want to get tips, but like you skip the ATM, you can just Venmo us and we'll give you cash. And these people were on, what was it? It was either like Molly or ketamine or something. And they put in the Venmo transaction. They're like, it's for the people on Molly. And I was like,
oh my God.
The government's looking.
Yes.
Don't say that.
Now they think we're selling drugs here.
Like it's not on me. But yeah, there's a lot of delight to be had. And I just really love the transformative experience of burlesque and having an energy exchange. Like it's so much more than just people taking off their clothes in public in front of strangers.
Right. That would be a strip club, right?
Well, but there's a lot of crossover.
Yeah.
You know
So
what
what would that be?
So a lot of New Orleans club strippers do burlesque as well. You know, someone described it to me once as, you know, the club is like a high pressured sales job, you know, and, you know, burlesque, there is a lot of theatricality in history in burlesque within strip clubs. But yeah, so it's like a Venn diagram, you know, there's different vibes, but there's a lot of great strip club influence happening in burlesque, and that's been happening for a while now. At least I mean that in modern burlesque. So you do see a lot more of club influence floor work. You see pole dancing in burlesque spaces a lot more. friends of mine do a show called Class. Pretty Boy Productions, Great Dane and Eddie Lockwood. And the Class, the first set of the show, everyone's doing classic burlesque. It's like da, 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 da. Intermission happens, and then they get into club dancing. They have a pole, and they do hire a lot of folks who strip in the club as well as burlesque. And so it kind of shows the two sides of it, you know. And there's definitely a different vibe, but they're related, and I think it's important to celebrate both, and not be anti-sex work and saying, I'm a burlesque dancer, I don't strip. And I'm like, well, you're naked in public in front of strangers for money. I don't know what other word to call it.
I mean, I would say they're both art forms. I've seen people on the pole that do things that are amazing.
I mean, honestly, I truly believe that should be in the Olympics. I'm not even joking.
Yeah, better than the breakdancing shit.
Oh my God.
No offense, breakdancers.
Too soon. Triggered. Wild. Yeah. It's just really powerful and incredible. Yeah, I did a little bit of pole dancing during lockdown, I never really did it. And I was like, well, let me take some classes. I can wear high heels and do fitness. Like, sign me up. It is hard as shit. I have a lot of respect for it. Yeah. Yeah.
So whenever you find people to do your shows, do you already have a list of artists, or is it people that you've met through the years, or do you find other people that are traveling around the States?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, here we have a great pool of working entertainers, and the great vast majority of us do this full time. So I do have a short list, there's the people that I tend to hire kind of on a regular basis. And because I have object permanence issues, I also literally have a list of all the folks that I tend to kind of hire. So I'll say okay, I need someone, and I try to mix it up. So every month it's a different cast, for all the different shows that I do. But I do literally have a list to remember all the people that are awesome. Yeah. But then we do have visitors, and, they come through. And so, it kind of depends on, the season, the vibe, when they get in touch. But, myself, that's how I first started performing here, was I would come traveling showgirl. And so, or maybe it's people that that are coming in from out of town, and they just hit me up and say, hey, we have a relationship. We've worked together before. I'm coming to town, you know? So it does vary. Sometimes I do get a lot of cold calls, a lot of emails saying hey, I'm so-and-so coming to town. But I really focus on curating my shows. And that's something that's really important to me. So for example, Kapow, Burlesque and Drag with a Bang. It's every act's a headlining act. Really energetic, and then, psychedelic. The cool thing about that show is we take you on a journey. Okay. And so actually my friend Eddie, for the very first show, they convinced me to let them do an act that we call The Bad Trip. And I really have to give them credit, because now it's been in every single show since, and it's been 5 years. And so the idea is you start out, you go on the journey. I eat a balloon at the start of the show. Okay. And so that's kind of down the hatch, kind of it's a proxy for taking something, we're okay, we're in it. And then as we go on the journey within the show, then the bad trip happens. And we're oh no. Typically the bad trip is more they're the chaos agent, the demon, versus, the performer having the bad trip. And then we kind of take you out of it. We're okay, we're starting to feel better. So, that's super curated, and it's also very neon. So, it's funny because I see more and more people creating neon because they know that that's what I like. And so they're look at my neon outfit. Will you book me?
Well, I mean, that would actually be a very bad trip if you were actually on psychedelics and then realized that you were on stage in front of a crowd full of people. Yeah. So I can see where that would be, the bad trip.
Yeah, definitely.
So what day is that show?
So Psychedelic Speakeasy tends to be about the top of the month, usually the first or second weekend of any given month, usually a Friday, sometimes a Saturday. I'd have to look and see when our next one is. Kapow, Burlesque and Drag with a Bang is last Saturdays. And so I'm trying to think, Tuesday is the 25th. So maybe it's the 29th. Okay. Fast math. I don't know. But that's actually my birthday week. So that will be a really fun one. I fill that cast with people that I love dearly because it's my birthday and I can do it. So yeah, Kapow is really fabulous. So is Psychedelic Speakeasy. And then I also have Night Moves, Burlesque You Can Savor. And that one is every other month, on a Thursday at 10, usually about the third week of the month. All of my stuff can be found at audaciousnola.com.
Love it.
Little plug. But yeah, we just had Night Moves on Thursday, and the conceit of the show is it's all long songs. So no song is shorter than 7 minutes, and often more. So 10 and a half is kind of like our, my dear friend Juno always does an act that's about 10 and a half minutes. And this past week, my friend Simone unseated her champion level status in doing the longest song of the show. But there's a lot of history in long form burlesque, and I love a long song.
Well, I mean, tell me about some of the history of that.
So if you think of like feature dancing, so back in the day, there was a lot of iterations of burlesque. You would have burlesque in theaters. You would have the Ziegfeld Follies, and that was more uptown. And then Minsky's burlesque was downtown. It's a little bit different vibe. And this is in New York City. But, throughout this kind of history of burlesque, you would have people dancing in nightclubs and doing like a feature set. So maybe it'd be 15 minutes, maybe it'd be 20 minutes, maybe it'd be a half an hour, and you're working it, milking it, and as a solo. And so,
I mean, that's a lot too for, solo act.
Stripping slowly.
Yeah.
One glove every 10 minutes.
Look, that's edging.
Yeah, absolutely. Truly. And then they're drinking more champagne. You know what I mean? I think that's kind of where
there you go.
You're like, keep them drinking, keep them waiting. But you see that really reflected in strip clubs these days. And you see that a little bit more. It's this kind of transition from burlesque into clubs. And so you'll see feature dancers, and I have a lot of friends that do the feature circuit in strip clubs. And so you have a lot of skill-based things that you're doing. And then, you're doing a long set, and you're kind of doing your feature show. They call it a show, because it is. So anyway, with Night Moves, it's like, let's give us time to really get some stuff done, take our time, work the room. And there's a lot of improv involved. And it's just one of my favorite shows. It's so fun. It tends to be really sexy, and it's such a delight. So we just had that one, and you never know what's going to happen, but it's always like a really powerfully delightful time.
Yeah, I'm going to have to get some of your shows for sure.
Yeah, I'll put you on the list.
Absolutely. I would love to come and check some of them out. Is there anything else you'd like to say to the people today?
I think that what I would love to say is now is an amazing time to really support live entertainment, live theater. So many of us are working artists, and just pay for art, attend shows, buy your tickets in advance, and I think that working full time as an artist isn't easy, but it's incredible. And I think that we really provide a lot to culture, and it's worth paying attention to and pouring some support into, including dollars.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. This city wouldn't be what it is without you guys.
Absolutely. If you take us away, well, then I guess you can go drink on bourbon, but there's nothing else to do.
Yeah, you want something to look at too.
Exactly. A little razzle dazzle.
Thank you for coming on today.
Hey, it was such a joy. I really appreciate it. And check me out at audaciousnola.com.